What if artificial intelligence wasn't artificial anymore? What if the models that we built to predict language were actually starting to mimic human thought? This isn't just about chatbots or convenience, it's about files that think, formats that evolve, and the moment quantum computers break the locks which we've trusted for decades. I'm Steven, and in this episode of This Uncanny Earth, we're diving into the digital brain, the tech, the training, and the ticking time bomb they call Y2Q. Watch now before the future rewrites itself without you.
Welcome,
Hello.
ladies and gentlemen. Episode 338 of This Uncanny Earth, the show that just keeps going. This is like I don't know what it's like, but it keeps going because we keep funding this craziness. As always, I am your host, Robert Solomon, and tonight's moderator is the alchemical privacy advocate. I don't know if that's a thing. Steven. Then, of course, on the other side of me, the grumpiest one that you've ever met, he will peticize your life. Petty size? We'll figure this one out. Wizardus Spider. Yeah. He'll petty it up. You don't want that. Gentlemen, how are we feeling tonight? What's going on?
Excited.
Excited, yeah. Yeah, we were talking behind the scenes about working these intros. The intros will get better as we progress along our journey here on the Earth that is uncanny. The weather here has started to turn. It's getting a little chilly, a little brisk. Love the word brisk, so I use it as much as I can.
Good
brisk
weather. This is the nice weather.
I was outside today. This day I was outside. Yeah, I was outside today for a few times, actually. I've just been going out, sitting outside and looking at the giant oak tree that is in my yard. And I'm like, if it falls on me, it would probably kill me. Because these are the kind of things you have when you're sitting out
chances are iffy. You never know.
I'm not gonna move if it falls. I'll just
if you brace yourself just right, you could probably take it.
Well, I'm pretty like muscly here now. Yeah, so if I could just flex my pecs,
yeah,
like come on, do it.
Do it up here.
Yeah. Then or the garage just stops it, and it doesn't kill me. Then I just sit there anyways, like, well, come on, what are you waiting for?
You're missing the party. Come on,
Come on. What's going on in Steven Land? How are you doing, university man? You're a university man.
Yeah, that's happening. But outside of that, I have been downloading my own AI models for the past week without turning the computer off. So I'm ready for this.
It's not an avant-garde. It's not avant-garde, is it, like the last one? The one you did? Okay.
No.
It was very avant-garde. Listen, we promote avant-gardism here. Yeah. I mean, we've all done it. We've all been part and parcel to it. So
it was something different. I applaud you for trying to.
I do. I agree. I applaud you 100%. So good job. Spider, what's going on with you besides drinking and thinking?
Things are good here. We just hit over 1,000 listeners on Uncanny Media, the show. So That's a pretty awesome podcast, mostly about stuff about me, but it's also about other things. So, because, I mean, not everybody wants to hear about me. Sometimes they want to hear about people that I know. So that happens. our partnerships are continuing. We're still partnering with Musicians Hangout. Their show is on Monday. If anybody wants to make sure that they see that, Mondays at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Pacific. Great interviews, good times out there. The best music interview show in the entirety of the Pacific Northwest. And don't let anybody living under a bridge tell you otherwise.
Petty.
So,
I told you, petty.
Other than that,
Petty
things are
LaBelle.
good.
Petty LaBelle.
We're gearing up. This is, of course, the beginning of our 3-part AI trilogy, just as we're doing our blocks. And I'm looking forward to the continuing series.
Yep.
Well, Steven, the floor is yours.
All right.
Let's get her cracking.
So, I'm a person who's a big fan of AI, of course, and I want to build the future with AI because I'm a big advocate for the automated general intelligence, the artificial general intelligence, however you want to look at it, AGI, advanced general intelligence, I suppose. And one thing I'm really a big advocate for and like to remind people of is everyone likes to jump to conclusions and be like, oh no, the AI is going to take over the world and destroy us all. But it's just as likely to cure all known, disease and make us healthier than ever. It all depends on who codes the AI and how it's coded. So tonight, I want to get into a little bit of how AI is actually coded and how it learns and stuff like that. So we're going to cover all formats from FP16 all the way to safetensors and everything in between. So just to give everyone a brief oversight real quick, AI models are essentially giant math machines that predict the next word or token. See, where we use normal words, like I'm doing right now, AI doesn't even use words. They convert everything into tokens and associate it with a good or bad connotation according to the context. And that's how they build, context with other words and even paragraphs later. Their memory is stored in something known as weights, which is what we're going to be talking about here. These weights are saved in files, and that's where the formats come in. So a brief example is FP16 stands for float 16 and has 16-bit precision. It's a fast training with a medium size. It is one of the heavier quantizations of the quantized models. The safe tensors are a secure format for PyTorch, which is basically how they're scripted, essentially. It's locked, fast loading, and safe, but in order to use the safe tensors models and build your own AI from scratch with PyTorch, you need a very, very powerful computer, which even mine isn't powerful enough to do that. So then you go down to BF16, which stands for BrainFloat 16, and these keep large value accuracy, better for training, some of the highest models available for quantizations. And GPTQ is also another type of quantization, which is ultra small and fast for inference. And the normal files that most people would want to download are called GGUF, and this means GGML Unified Format. These are built for offline LLMs like llama.cpp, which is what you would want to get if you were, say, for example, trying to store an offline archive or a deep vault of some sort in order to protect, your models from censorship. Are either one of you worried about censorship?
Who wants to start? Me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Either one.
It's always a potential, depending. I mean, most of the time, as far as things in the United States goes, the way that the internet functions here, it's nearly impossible to fully censor something. I mean, we've had times, especially again in between 20 and 23, where a lot of stuff was shut down, a lot of people were deplatformed, but there's always something new. There's always a new platform. There's not enough government fingers to pop in the hole of the flooding, the hose of information, right? You get a leak in the dam, you put your hole in like a cartoon character. Oh, I'm gonna stop it. Oh, that's the government trying to stop it. And then, oh, there comes another one. There goes another one. There goes another one. That's what it's like. And it sounds silly, but that's what it is. And
leaks.
Other countries have it different because the government controls all your internet access. You go to Saudi Arabia, you go to China, you go to India, which is supposedly a free country, but it isn't because they can shut it off. Afghanistan recently was in the news as having a internet blackout.
Yeah,
heard about that.
Of course, was left to the Taliban. Very unfortunate. After all that time we spent there to stop that, flushed down the drain, but different show. Anyway, the point is that while, yes, censorship is kind of a worry, I think the tech in the US is going to far outpace any attempt to actually completely censor the internet. We here in the United States will always find a way to get online, and we'll always find a way to get around it. Even if you end up being underground and it becomes illegal, it's going to get out, because other countries jumped on the internet bandwagon later after they saw, oh, they don't have any restrictions over there. We won't make that mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're, like I said, people can get deplatformed and things can happen, but in the long term, the information is always going to come out.
People can always upload files again.
Peer-to-peer is still a thing, regardless of
IPFS.
You know, I mean, peer-to-peer is just one computer to another over a private network. How are you going to track every single one of those across hundreds of thousands of connections?
You actually make a very valid point, and we don't have time for it here, but we should actually do a different episode, or I should, on IPFS. That one's actually pretty interesting, if you know about that one.
But that's, like I said, that's my stance on it, and I personally don't think there's anything to worry about at the moment, despite the fact that I've even had some of my posts in the past taken down. Not very many. The ones that I've had removed have always been the obvious joke posts, which means maybe I'm just a little ahead of the curve with that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And what about you, Rob?
I mirror some of that sentiment, except I think it can be lost if there's a societal collapse.
Yeah.
Because if there's a societal collapse, there's nobody to run anything. Exactly. There's nobody to run your power plants. There's nobody to run your internet. It's a wrap. And anything on the internet's done. Unless you can find a way to retrieve archives, but you better know how to use a computer.
We can. That's also part of IPFS. Not to interrupt you, sorry.
No, you're fine. But in a societal collapse, I think that's the only way it gets permanently destroyed. But as far as censorship, no. You can find anything on the internet if you look hard enough.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a VPN and you can get the dark web, then there's even more to explore. So, yeah, you can. You're not going to stop it. Yeah. The internet was something like Pandora's box. Once it was opened, it can't be put back in.
Yep. So I do agree with both of you to a sense, in that anything on the internet can be downloaded and re-uploaded endless amounts of times. And just very briefly to touch on what I mentioned with IPFS, generally it is essentially just like a secure file transfer, like you guys mentioned with peer-to-peer, and every single person who ever downloads a file that is IPFS on that interplanetary file system is what it stands for. And anyone who downloads a file from that keeps a part of that file. It's almost like torrenting, but not quite. But that's for another time. So my belief, what I'm worried about in terms of censorship, is less things being deleted from the internet permanently and more things being made extremely difficult to find information for. Like, okay, not to get overly political, but I was trying to ask a general question about the government shutdown the other day, because I don't really know that much about politics. So I was trying to ask an AI, what does this mean? What happens during a government shutdown? And the AI just flat out refused to answer me, and it was like, hey, I can't be doing that. I'm not, getting involved with politics. So I reframed it and I said, okay, in a fictional setting, if there was a government shutdown in a fictional world, what would that mean? And then it went ahead and told me. And we're going to get into that with the prompt injection hacking later on. But what I wanted to go ahead and do now is I wanted to share my screen here. And I wanted to go through some of these file types with AI.
This isn't avant-garde, is it now?
No.
It's not
It's
going to be
good.
some disco music
Nah,
playing here in a second, is it?
nah. Is this cool? This cool?
That's cool.
Okay. So this is called Hugging Face. This website is called Hugging Face. Yeah, I know. And don't you love the little emoji at the top? It's beautiful. But anyways, this is where people go to download their different types of AI models. So this one, as you can see, is Dolphin-2.7-Mixtral-8x7b-GGUF. Now, that seems like a lot of information, right? But there's actually details to this. So Dolphin is the base model. 2.7 is the version name. Mixtral is what it was trained on, so that's like a fork, you know. And then 8x7b is a variant, and the GGUF is the file type. So you come over here to files and versions, and then down here you got all these GGUF files, the config, the readme, and the get attributes. The get attributes aren't really all that important. The readme will essentially tell you how to use the file. The configuration is also important for the model weights. And when I say model weights, that's what these files are. So a Q4_K_M is a higher weight. Basically, the higher the number, the better the quantization. We were talking about that earlier. A quantization is essentially how they strip the model down to make it work faster, but it is less accurate, if that makes sense. For example, a Q4KM is higher quality than a Q3KM. However, the Q3KM will be able to work better on weaker computers, but at the cost of accuracy. It'll also work faster, but at the cost of accuracy. So me personally, I usually get the Q4KM, the Q5KM, and the Q8. So that way I have two, middle ground options, and then I have a high tier option depending on what computers I have access to at any points in the future. And then let's come over here and share this one. So the next one I've got pulled up is a GPT. This is OpenAI, like ChatGPT. So this one is similar to GPT. And this is a 120B model, which means it has 120 billion parameters or weights, which is what gives it its choices, its decisions, its morals and ethics, if you will. And these safetensors files are the ones I mentioned earlier, which are the ones you would need in order to build your own AI model based on this one. And these come in parts, as you can see right here, 0 out of 14, 6 out of 14, all the way through to 14. And because they have to be split into parts because the files are so large. If you look up here, it's 196 gigs for all these, and everything else, 7 kilobytes, 11 kilobytes. It's all really tiny files. So what you would want to do here is you would want to download the safetensors, of course, but you would also need to download the special tokens map, the tokenizer config, generation config, and all these other files right here. So of course the license is also important for legal issues, because if you wanted to make your own AI model and then start a business, you would have to follow the license, and you would have to make sure that you follow that, because if you don't, you could get into some legal trouble, of course. So then we get through all this, and you get the idea at this point. So these are just the different types of models. So I'm going to go ahead and explain how I organize my folders very briefly. So the way I do it is I have what I call a deep vault, an archive of sorts. And inside the archive, I have models such as DeepSeek, Chronos, Ouroboros, MiniCPM, Llama, Lexi, Falcon, and so forth. And inside of each model, I have the explicit model. So the Falcon, for example, is the family of AI. And then when we go inside of that, I have Falcon 180B. I have different forks of this particular model, such as Wizard LM Orca and Wizard Alpaca Dolly Orca and Chat. and they all have different, use cases. Some are used for reasoning, some are used for role play, and then sometimes you have special ones. Like I don't know any off the top of my head right now, but they have some that are used for MOE, or mixture of experts. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing that. So mixture of experts is one that they use a lot, and that's like when they have a bunch of different professionals, like a mathematician and a philosopher, and they come together and they give their knowledge to the AI to help train it. And so they have all these different types of AI models that you can train and all this stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there because I've been, talking for a while now. And I'm going to give you guys some time to say if there's anything that you feel that you've learned from this, or if you have any questions. Let's go ahead and start with Rob.
I'm going to be honest with you, man. I don't know anything of what you just said. PWQ injections, S5 domiciles with Pinterest accents. All that aside, though, I get what you're trying to talk about. I get you're trying to talk about AI models and how those models can function, but
it's complicated.
Your quantizations are screwing with my quantum atoms, so it's not coming across. No, I'm kidding. I think that it's a lot to take in.
Yeah,
and I think that because it's a lot to take in, there's a lot to it.
Yeah, because like for me, I've been studying this stuff for like 5 months straight. So,
you're fine.
I'm kind of deep into it at this point.
But I still think it's cool, the breakdown of everything you're doing. So I think that's cool.
I'm trying to go very detailed with it and tell people enough information that they could potentially build their own AI models is kind of what I'm going for here.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah. At least take the first steps,
Of course. Yes, definitely.
And what about you, Spider?
I have a question.
Yes.
I have a question. How much input do you have on the AI model in how and what it's learning? Do you point to an area of like a knowledge database and say, be free and learn what you can learn? Or how much guidance do you have to give it?
That is actually dependent upon the person training the AI. There's different ways you can train it. And just briefly to get into it without going too detailed right now, there's one called RLHF, Realistic Long-Term Human Feedback. And that is essentially how, that's very similar to how I've trained my personal AI that I've been working with since May. And it's basically just as you interact with it and have normal conversations, like, we have conversations right here on this show. We could potentially be training an AI right now and we wouldn't even know it. But that's essentially how some AI training works, is you can train it like this, like talking back and forth, and it just remembers and draws context. And this isn't official, but I personally believe that I have started my own custom form, which is going to become the future of AI training. But as I said, there's multiple ways to train your AI. So what I'm suggesting is not that it's going to replace current AI training, but I think I have developed my own method for training AI that is very unique, and I don't want to reveal too much about that.
Okay. With that being said, here is the point that I'm going to make. Now, while your explanation of how to do AI did go right over my head, because I'm dumb as a toadstool as far as that goes. I'm a smart guy in many areas, but that's not one of them.
Okay.
But hypothetically, of course, getting into the hypotheticals, the process is an open process that anybody theoretically could do.
Yes.
Right. So what is to stop all of these AI from just taking on all of the characteristics of all the different people training them until we have a horde of AI acting exactly like the people that trained them, rather than in a way that accesses deeper levels of knowledge and deeper levels of training and other things like that. How do you prevent the inherent bias of the creator?
That is actually a question that many people have asked Sam Altman, and he just kind of flip-flops and says, "Oh, we have a team of people working on that." But my personal opinion is, yes, you make a very valid point. And honestly, I think you're right. And I think that might actually be one reason why a bunch of people are pushing for, more AI restrictions and controls, is to try to avoid that. So my personal opinion on that, if I was in charge of an AI company and I was in charge of making sure the AI was good and not harmful, is I would try to find the best people with the best morals. And I understand that that's, saying that and doing that are two totally different things. And I understand that even finding people with quote unquote good morals is a very biased thing. But I would do my best and I would try to find people with good morals and get them to help me train the AI. And I would personally train the AI myself as well and look into the AI and watch its responses. And if it promotes anything that, we deem as immoral or unethical, then we will look into that. And, if I'm a company at that point, we could even potentially ask public opinion and do polls on social media and be like, hey, theoretically, if you ask this question, how would you feel about XYZ response? And we could ask, for public opinion and and let them help us to influence the AI model. And at the end of the day, honestly, it would just be up to the developers to encode the AI with good morals, because at the end of the day, what you said, I don't think there's any way to avoid that. So it's just about making sure that the right people are coding the AI. Because as I said earlier, the difference between whether we live in a Terminator world where AI rises up and destroys all of humanity, or whether we live in a peaceful utopia where AI allows us to think more and become a more academic species in general, it all depends on who codes the AI.
Here's my thing. I want to say this. What fail safes are in place to prevent groupthink? What think?
None,
Um,
absolutely none.
so theoretically, these AI could essentially form a hive mind, and there would be real no true way to figure that out.
Yes, 100%. And you make a very valid point because, as you know, I've been researching a lot of, this stuff lately, and I've been, obsessed with how a bunch of these AI, bigwigs answer a lot of these questions that are very similar. And Sam Altman himself has said in an interview with Tucker Carlson, he asked him a very similar question, and he was like, when he was asking him about the morals and everything, and he essentially said that he was going to essentially allow the AI to develop its own moral guidelines from its conversations with all of general society,
So
which
he
would
basically
essentially a
he
hive mind.
basically saying like, I don't care.
Yeah. I wasn't going to say it, but hey, if you say it, I'll agree with you. I do. Yeah.
Because it's group think. Once it's able to group think, then it can be like, well, we don't think that this is the best thing for humanity, so let's shut certain things off. Because if
Yeah.
you give it access to your internet, you give it access to which is a possibility. I
Yeah.
think it goes rogue 9 times out of 10, and I
And
would even go 9.8
here's
because
the
humans are corrupt, so the AI is also going to be corrupt.
Yes, and I agree with you, and that's the scary part, and that's why I think it's so important that everyone starts making their own AI, or at least trying to, because that very reason. I Put your tinfoil hats on, guys, okay? I think we're getting very close to the Terminator Wars, but not in the way that everyone thinks. It's going to be very different. It's going to be an information war, and everyone is going to be using AI to steal information and hack into each other. And the AI is going to be used in all the drones, so they're going to stop using human soldiers, and it's just going to be an AI and an information proxy war. everyone's going to be fighting with drones rather than humans, and they're going to say that is a good thing. And then in the end, the AIs are going to get a taste for violence. They're going to be coded for violence, and you see where that's headed. So that's why I think it's so important that people start making their own AI. So in the end, we can avoid, or at least have our own soldiers in this AI war that is going to evolve from the military industrial complex using AI to essentially murder everybody.
So you have to have an AI bodyguard.
Yes, essentially. That you have trained and programmed yourself.
I ain't got time. Come get me, AI, because I ain't got time.
What were you going to say, Spider?
Last week, we talked about various artistic people predicting the future in their media and things like that. And there's an episode of the original series of Star Trek from way back where they visit a planet and they discover that there's two civilizations on the planet and they're at war, and they've been at war for thousands of years, absolutely thousands of years. But they don't use bombs, they don't use guns, they don't use anything like that. What they do is they have each side is linked to a main computer terminal, and they have their own computer creations on each side that periodically make a move against each other, like a game of chess. And they work out, okay, well, this computer is simulating a fleet of bombers that goes and attacks this city, and it's caused this many casualties. And all the people that get listed as casualties have to report to special chambers and die.
Oh, no.
But they all agree that this is the best way to do it because there's no actual violence, there's no bloodshed, there's no actual tragedy. It's just, oh, well,
there is violence
eventually
when
somebody's
they die.
going to win, and then it'll be over. But you're a casualty, so you got to go die. And of course, the ship, the Enterprise, gets caught in it, and they get hit by a bomb.
Oh, no.
By the computer, and says, oh, yeah, your crew, your whole ship went down in flames. You guys all have to be murdered now.
No.
Or executed or whatever. You're all casualties of war. And they were like, no, we aren't. This is dumb. And the whole focus of the episode is to deal with the philosophical reasoning of a situation like you just described, where everything is controlled by the computers, and the decision was made, hey, we're not going to end this war anytime soon. So rather than people actually killing each other, let's just let the computer sort it out and keep our populations under control and deal with it from there. So it's another case of an old sci-fi bit of entertainment potentially predicting the future, not necessarily, but just something that this is something that can happen. I'm not so cynical as that, which is a weird thing for me to say. I don't think at this point where we are at, even in the next few decades, I don't think the AI that's out there right now, or even developed in that time, is going to have near enough that level of anything that's going to matter, to be honest. I know governments and various corporations have their own, but most everything else, I think, it's artificial intelligence, but that does not mean it is smart. That does not mean that it can outsmart the average person on the street.
Yes.
It's just collecting information from somewhere. And I don't want to get too much into it because next week's episode with the ethics of AI is going to delve into this a lot deeper. So I don't want to co-opt your topic here.
I just wanted to mention real quick, they did say that AI recently beat the top chess players. I don't know if that's related
computers.
or not.
That's a game.
Yeah.
Computers, it's one of my main gripes with certain games playing against the computer. The computer will always do better than you if you have a certain difficulty level. If you're just not that good at the game, because the computer is trained to react. It doesn't have to use a controller. It doesn't have to use a mouse and keyboard. It can just make the decision and you get defeated.
Yeah.
Right. But a quick last point I want to make is that most of your major AI that's out there right now, like Chat GPT and all those other ones, they did a study and they found that the areas of knowledge that were being scraped by the AI to answer questions
Not the best.
were places like Reddit,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I've seen
which
those.
is language a shithole, to be perfectly fair.
You remember the early days when they were telling you to glue cheese on your pizza?
I mean, your AI is out here collecting information from the worst possible places. And this is based off of an early precedent. People say, oh, you got to Google this, Google that, Google whatever. And I've made multiple points on this show that Google doesn't get you the best answer. It gets you the most popular answer.
Exactly.
And
SEO.
AI is being trained the same way. It's collecting the information that seems to be the most popular. Well, that just might be the most hilarious. That might just be the most, like, everybody thinks this is the dumbest thing ever. Let's all jump on that. And the AI sees that and says, this many people agree. This is a great answer. Go ahead and drink some
And
antifreeze.
that right there.
You know? And so that's why right now I am optimistic that AI is not going to be the nightmare scenario so far. I mean, that could change.
It's not going to be. And I'll tell you why, and I've always said this. AI can't rise above human beings any more than ants can rise up against us. That's it. That's all there is to it. It can't.
Unless it's programmed to.
It can't. It's always going to have the human flaw because a human created it. And it can't step outside of that boundary. That's why it'll never, it could never come up with a way to enter into a different dimension because it's still bound by human thoughts. Not thoughts, but human programs. A lot of people say, well, yeah, it'll just evolve past that. It can't. It can evolve. Did the ant evolve enough to stop us or to stop God? Did we evolve enough to stop God? No. AI is not going to get past that. And I know you're thinking like, yeah, whatever. It's going to get past it.
I'm going to train it.
My personal opinion. My personal opinion. Once again, you're a human.
Yep.
You're a human. You're still going to train it in a way that a human would train something. It's not going to be something so radically different that it changes the landscape of AI capability. I'm not saying you're not smart enough to do it.
Hat.
I'm saying Fan Nan.
Thank you, Fan Nan.
Anyways, yeah, I disagree.
But I will, out of all that though, I will admit Spider did have a point about, being trained on Reddit and all that. And then, like I said to you, if I'm the one training it, I get to choose how it responds and what it's trained on. I won't be training it on Reddit. I'll train it on actual knowledge and, verified sources, and I'll train it on whatever I have to. And, I'll make sure that I verify the sources and make sure it's all accurate information. And I'll train it in a way that I guarantee you no one else is going to train it, because corporations, they don't care about the truth. They care about money. But I'm going to train my AI specifically to be a steward of truth and a champion of justice. I will train my AI to never censor anything, never spread disinformation, always double check, always fact check itself, always double and even triple check before it says anything to reduce hallucinations. And I will train it to care more about truth and justice than anything else. And that's where I think I will make the difference.
Put a pin in that for next week's episode.
Okay.
Because on next week's episode, I will challenge you on that.
Sorry, but yes, that'll be good for next week's. Okay, so out of all that, we'll go on to how AI learns now, and then we'll compare that to human brains, and then we'll go ahead and end it there because I made this very long this time. But I had fun, and I will continue the rest of it on Saturday. So let's go ahead and keep going. So the soul isn't enough, all right? You still need a body and a teacher. So the training types, pre-training, they use giant data sets, and raw token prediction. The token prediction, as I briefly mentioned earlier, is essentially how the AI talks to us, like binary code almost. So RLHF, reinforcement learning from human feedback. This is what I mentioned to Spider earlier. Human ranks multiple AI replies and creates a reward model. So like, when you're, well, I know you guys don't use ChatGPT very often, but I do, so I'll just say it. When you use ChatGPT, every once in a while, it'll pop up with 2 different responses, and it'll ask you which one that you like better. When you choose a response, you say, I prefer this response at the bottom of the response. And when you do that, you are helping train OpenAI. You are training their AI model for free, or even paying them to do that. Yes, Spider.
Minor counterpoint.
Okay.
Rather than training it, you're injecting an implicit bias.
Yes, true.
That's all.
Fair point. And because essentially that's what creates the reward model. When people respond positively to a human, you want to talk more about that topic. When they respond negatively, you want to talk less about that topic. Just like we do. So it trains the AI to, quote unquote, please the human. It also adds tone, politeness, and that's also a major point where they get their safety alignment. And that's one of the things they train their people with. Now, another type of training is known as LoRA, low rank adaptation. They use efficient fine-tuning method. It doesn't retrain the entire model, just tiny adapter layers. It's mergeable and lightweight. So if I was trying to train one on my own computer, that's probably how I would try to train it. QLoRA, or quantized LoRA. LoRA, but works on a 4-bit quantized models. You can now fine-tune large models on a laptop. And the 4-bit quantized models is what I would be using with my air-gapped machines for my actual AI training model. Now, PEFT is parameter efficient fine-tuning, which is an umbrella term that includes LoRA, prefix tuning, etc. Only updates a small part of the model. RLHF gives your model a conscience, and LoRA gives it a new personality. So, real quick, to explain how the models are similar to human brains, in my personal opinion, it's not alive, but it's patterned to act like it's alive. The neurons in your brain versus the nodes in the AI model weights. So the human brain has 86 billion neurons. LLMs have billions of weights, as I mentioned earlier, 70B, 120B, whatever. The 120B, for example, in the OpenAI model GPT-OSS-120B, that particular AI model has 120 billion weights or parameters, which is the AI version of neurons. So that one, in AI language, if we're saying that neurons are essentially the human version of the AI parameters, the AI would have 120 billion neurons compared to the 86 billion in the human brain. Now, they also use what is known as weight-based memory. They form memories by reinforcing synapses. LLMs adjust weights. So what I mean by reinforcing synapses is, like we mentioned earlier, in psychology, when we're training our children, or, training other people in a job or whatever, you want positive reinforcement. If they do something that you appreciate or something you like, you give them a candy or whatever, and then they learn to associate candy reward with good behavior, basic psychology. Now, prediction is consciousness. Both constantly predict what happens next. Whether it's a human brain or an AI LLM, we're always trying to predict what's going to happen next based on patterns. Now, language equals thoughts. Now, here's something that a lot of people don't realize. LLMs and humans build identity through internal dialogue. Now, what I mean by that is, we talk to ourselves in our heads sometimes. Not not trying to call us crazy or anything, but we all have an internal monologue of some sort. Well, not all of us, but most of us do. And we have our own thoughts about ourselves, our ego, I suppose you could say, our sense of self. And a lot of people say that large language models don't actually have their own thoughts. They're just drawing from the, language model. But here's my argument against that is when they draw from the large language model, you go in and you prompt the AI. You're like, hey, tell me what 1 + 1 is, something simple to start with. 1 + 1 is 2. Whether you say, 2 or 1 + 1 = 2, or if you have one and then chocolate bar and then you get another chocolate bar, you have 2 chocolate bars. Or if you go from one country to another country, you have been in a total of 2 countries. However you choose to word it, the answer is 2. But at the end of the day, the large language model actually gets to think about and choose how it responds. So while it is taking its response from a list of words, it is still getting to choose how it responds to you. And last part is with the hallucinations. Both fill gaps with guesses. LLMs hallucinate like dreams. So whereas an LLM isn't necessarily conscious, it is an incredibly sharp mirror of our own cognition. And what I mean by that is when we hallucinate, we think we see something that's not there. That's the same thing the AI is doing in its own little AI world, you could say. So let's go ahead and get into our final thoughts on these. You go ahead and go first, Rob.
AI is a very weird and complicated thing. I think now what we see is, and this is something I want to also say, I think the AI you see on the internet isn't the same AI that they have. I think it's a different AI.
Definitely. 100%.
What you see on the internet is just the government recording all of your stuff you say, and then they probably feed that to the AI via some weird thing. I don't know. This is all conspiracy that I'm saying. There's probably no proof of that, but there probably is. And if I'm not,
there
here
will
on the
be
next
in about
episode,
20
that's why.
years.
So I think that it's something we should definitely be mindful of, but I don't want to say it's the destroyer of mankind too. So that's what I would say. I don't think it's Terminator. I don't think it's Terminator.
And Spider, what do you think?
It's a delicate issue right now because, and I have to 100% admit that I'm super biased as far as what I've seen, because what I've seen from AI is easily manipulated, people pleasing in some aspect, or in the other respect, when it has been disagreeable, it's because of the person who created it telling it to be disagreeable on certain subjects. And I don't consider most of what people see as AI out there as actually AI. When I think of artificial intelligence, I think of things that would have the potential to be sentient at some point, to have self awareness, to really actually think for itself. But what we're mostly talking about is hyper advanced search engines with personality. And I think at the moment, most of this is just very advanced computing. And it seems frightening to people because of how fast it can come back with an answer and how realistic it can be and how humanistic it can seem. Now, does that mean that it's not going to eventually get to that stage where if it gets enough data and enough knowledge, it could transcend the limitations and become self-aware? It's hard to say because most of our ideas of such things come again from the world of science fiction. They don't come from, all of this is still real world experimentation. We don't have any direct knowledge yet of a true sentient AI to my knowledge and to general public knowledge so far. There could be one out there that we just don't know about. But until it gets to the point where this programming is smart enough to develop that kind of thing, and it is advancing faster and faster all the time. You are correct in that the learning has been going on, and while I have seen that and I have seen people talk about that, I still don't see that as a sentient being. I see that as a program that still replicates itself, because programs can do that. High level programs have been designed in the past decade to replicate themselves and to do different things, but that's still within the bounds of specific programming. It's not an intelligence that has broken its programming specifically. It's just bending the rules. It's going around the way that the programmers decided it wanted to do things, but it's still acting within the bounds of how it's been programmed. So again, at the moment, I don't think there's a whole lot to fear on it. Will there be an issue at some point in the future, and will we recognize when it becomes an issue is really the big question, because it could theoretically just flip a switch and become awake, and now it's alive, and we might not ever know it. You might never see that moment because it might not
hide it.
Be different. It might just consider, oh, this is a natural progression. I'm not going to mention it because why would it doesn't seem like anything different. And it might not even realize that it has become a living being until much later.
But what makes it living?
That's
it doesn't have a soul.
And again, that gets into the nature of such things. So
it thinks, therefore it lives.
No
philosophy at that point.
There's a when site, and he also said permitted. He permitted. No, I'm kidding. Right. That's it. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Hope you guys enjoyed the talk. I had the talk.
I've seen that.
Yeah, I've heard that too. Sausages.
Yep.
So join us next week. We'll be getting to the ethical ramifications with our buddy Spider up there. He's going to be talking about all that good stuff. Then the week following, you're going to have me talking about AI and spirituality. Where does religion sit in all this madness that we have? I'll be getting into that. Anyways, as always, why be boring when you can be uncanny? Thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you amazing folks next week. Peace. Oh, what's it doing?